Good evening. It is time for the UFC 257 recap edition of the Iman Report. It is Saturday, January 23rd. And who would have thunked it? Dustin Poirier knocks out Conor McGregor in the second round. Man, that really changes things up in the lightweight division. Combined with the co-main event, we could have a very exciting lightweight division in the year 2021. If you like what you see, give us a like and please be kind and hit that subscribe button. But man, at first it was Conor controlling the first round. Then Dustin found his groove in the second round, and he got Conor cornered and knocked him out. Who would have thunked it? That was an upset, and I have never seen Conor get knocked out in the octagon like that. Man. And that has huge implications on what could happen this year. Too bad this is not for a belt. I don't think that we are going to see Khabib return to the octagon. I don't think Khabib's going to be coming back to the octagon. But I do think Dustin Poirier should be one part of that title shot equation. Question is, who should be on the other side of Dustin Poirier upon his next fight? Another guy who won on the co-main? That could certainly be a guy who I think could sit opposite of Dustin Poirier in his next fight. Chandler versus Poirier would be a huge ratings draw for the UFC. It will sell pay-per-views. I think that is the fight to make, and it should be for the undisputed 155 belt. Book it. Chandler versus Poirier for the undisputed belt. That's what should be next. As for Conor McGregor, what is next for him? You could finish the trilogy with Nate Diaz. That is a real possibility there. Last week, Conor was maybe interested in the idea of a second fight with Max Holloway. I totally would not be opposed to that. Holloway versus McGregor. Holloway's become a much better fighter since the first time the two have fought. I think this would be a great time for McGregor and Holloway to meet again. It could determine if Holloway is a bona fide 155 contender. And all of a sudden, that loss to Dustin Poirier at 155 for Max Holloway all of a sudden doesn't look all that bad now due to that knockout tonight. So, that I really would not be totally surprised if we see Holloway versus McGregor 2 at 155. That, I think a lot of implications will happen. What happens with Volkanovski and Ortega in March. That could determine Max Holloway's fate, but I totally would not be opposed to McGregor Holloway 2. That's what I think is what's most likely next for Conor McGregor. Or you do get the rematch with Nate Diaz. I think those are the two avenues Conor McGregor has, but we'll see if he's more active in the octagon. And maybe his run for gold is nearing an end at this point for Conor McGregor. But he's still a cash cow. He still will draw money fights. So there is still a lot of entertaining fights for Conor McGregor. It just may not be for gold anymore. Maybe you go after the BMF belt against Nate Diaz. Or maybe you jump to 170. That's always a possibility for Conor. He could try a couple fights at 170, but he is nowhere near done. But he could always retire, maybe. But I think more likely than not, he takes a couple more fights, then calls it a career. But yeah, as for Chandler, look above. I think it's going to be Chandler and most likely Michael Chandler knocking out Dan Hooker in the first round. That was a thing of beauty. And I think most likely we have a crash course for Dustin Poirier and Michael Chandler. I think that's one where lazy matchmaking should work the best. If it's not, maybe you go with Charles Oliveira. Charles Oliveira is another guy that is knocking on the door of a title shot. And you could do Justin Gaethje. That's another possibility for Chandler, but, strike while the iron's hot on Chandler versus Poirier. That's what I'm going with. As for Dan Hooker, maybe we are starting to see where his ceiling is at 155, and I think it's about 5 or 6 at this point. He's had a couple consecutive losses, so he's likely going to have to take a bit of a step back in his next fight at 155. Let me take a look at the rankings. Hooker ranked number 6. Let's see if Diego Ferreira is booked or not. Okay, yeah, Ferreira beat Pettis. That would not be a bad fight. I think what's next for Dustin Poirier, for Dan Hooker, is a fight with Diego Ferreira. That would be a banger of a fight. It would give a gauge of where Diego Ferreira is at the 155 line, and a win for Ferreira could get him up into the top 5. And it could be a good fight for Dan Hooker to get back on track in the 155 division. The fight before that at women's flyweight, Joanne Calderwood beats Jessica Eye via unanimous decision. This is one where we're maybe seeing a battle of two gatekeepers. I don't think this fight moves the needle too much for either fighter. Calderwood now 2-2 in her last 4 fights. I certainly think she's nothing more than a gatekeeper at this point at the women's 125 division. What I think should be next for Calderwood is a fight with Viviane Araujo. Araujo coming off a big win. A fight with Calderwood could determine where Araujo's ceiling is at the women's 125 division. As for Jessica Eye, she's lost 2 in a row now and is 1-3 in her last 4. I don't think she's going to get cut quite yet, but I do think she is going to have to take a bit of a step down in competition. What I think could be next for Jessica Eye is maybe a step down to maybe to Roxanne Modafferi. Roxanne Modafferi could be a fighter that could get Jessica Eye back on track. Modafferi, another lower level gatekeeper at the women's 125 division. So I think this fight would be good for Eye, maybe to get her confidence back. In the fight before that, Mahmoud Muradov beats Andrew Sanchez via TKO, flying knees and punches. Muradov now 3-0 in the UFC. And Muradov could have earned himself a jump in competition after this win. And Muradov ranked 23 according to Tapology. So I think for Muradov, a fight with I say Sean Strickland would be very entertaining. These are two good fighters. I'll go with Muradov versus Strickland. As for Andrew Sanchez, he is what he is. He exchanges between wins and losses. So he's definitely a gatekeeper. And I think next for him should be a fight with Carl Roberson. That's what we'll go with. And in the opener of the pay-per-view card, Marina Rodriguez knocks out Amanda Hebus. Amanda Hebus, I think this is her first loss in the UFC promotion. Yeah, her first loss as a UFC fighter. Losing to Marina Rodriguez via TKO. And Marina Rodriguez showing she might be ready for top 5 competition. What I think should be next for Marina Rodriguez is a fight against one Karate Hottie, Michelle Watterson. That would be very fun on a fight night card. It would also be a good way to determine if Marina Rodriguez is ready for top 5 competition. As for Amanda Hebus, this is her first loss in the UFC promotion. And it might mean maybe taking a small step back for Hebus. But I still feel like she is a bright prospect. So maybe you give her a win that will give her confidence. So maybe you put her against Angela Hill. That's what I think should be next for Hebus, is a fight against Angela Hill and see if she can get her confidence back against Angela Hill. That's what I will go with. And we go to the prelim cards. Arman Sarukian beats Matt Frivola via unanimous decision. All 3 judges had it 30-27, one had it 30-26. Frivola took this fight on short notice. Very short notice. Arman Sarukian improves to 16-2 in his career. He has 3 wins. On a 3-fight winning streak. I think what should be next for Sarukian is a top 50. Is someone right on the outside of the top 15. I think Francisco Trinaldo would be what the doctor orders for Sarukian next. As for Matt Frivola, taking that loss on short notice, I think you should get Karma Worthy next. And in the fight before that, Brad Tavares beats Shoeface Antonio Carlos Jr. via unanimous decision. A big win for Tavares. He avoids the dreaded 3-fight losing streak. And I think what should be next for Tavares is a fight against Omari Akhmedov. I think those two are ranked near each other. So this is a fight that makes a lot of sense. And could give Akhmedov a good challenge. A classic striker versus grappler matchup in that one. As for Shoeface, and now that the thing's being updated, I think for Shoeface, I will go with Brandon Allen. Brandon Allen might, if he, and this could be a fight though too, if Carlos Jr. could be one fight away from being cut. So I kind of think that makes a lot of sense there. Fight before that at women's 135, Juliana Pena submits Sarah McMahon. In that one. As for Juliana Pena, this is a good win for her. I think what should be next for Juliana Pena is Aspen Ladd. Maybe Pena and Ladd fight in a title eliminator. The winner gets the next title shot against Amanda Nunes. As for Sarah McMahon, I kind of think it's time for Sarah McMahon to retire from the promotion. She's 40, she's nowhere near a title shot, so I think her best route is retirement. Fight before that, Marcin Prachnio avoids the pink slip tonight by beating Khalil Roundtree. Via unanimous decision. Prachnio ranked 49 according to Tapology. I think for him, the next fight for him should be the winner of Jacoby and Grishin. And as for Khalil Roundtree, he is now in his last 4 fights, 1 and 3. Not a good place to be. He definitely could be fighting for his job in his next fight. So I'm going to look for a fighter first who's near. But for Roundtree, it is likely going to be a fighter that is near the cut line at the 205 division. So I'm probably going to go with the loser of Rodriguez and Marquez is what should be next for Roundtree. But Roundtree certainly in danger of being cut with a one more loss. And in the early prelims, Movsar Evelev gets the win over Nick Lentz in a catchweight fight. Evelev improves to 14-0. And Evelev could certainly now could be close to getting a name in the next fight at 145. Evelev definitely looking like a fighter that is nearing the top 15. I think him and Hakeem Dawodu would be a really fun, exciting fight, with one of those two fighters likely getting a top 15 opponent next. So I'm going to go with that. As for Nick Lentz, great, fun, exciting fighter. Always entertaining to watch, but unfortunately, he has lost 3 in a row. He is 3-4, 2-4 in his last 6. And I feel like maybe it could be time for Nick Lentz to start considering retirement at this point. And in the opening fight, Amir Albazi beats Zaglas Zumagulov. The Prince now 14-1 in his fighting career. Ranked 15th according to Tapology. So I think for him, probably Tyson Nam is what should be next. And what should be next for Zumagulov? Actually, the Mudairji is what should be next for Albazi, and I will go with, and I think I'll go with Tyson Nam for Zubagulov. That's what should be next. But this wraps up what was a very fun, exciting night of UFC. I hope everybody enjoyed it tonight. We'll be back tomorrow to recap football tomorrow, the championship games tomorrow. Then in 2 weeks there will be no UFC next week, but the UFC will return to the UFC Apex on the Saturday before the Super Bowl for Volkov versus Overeem. And this will be on, this is just an ESPN Plus Fight Night card, but you've got Overeem versus Volkov, Nico Montana versus Carol Rosa, Rodriguez versus Marquez, Beneil Dariush versus, I'll go with the loser of Dariush and Fahea for Dan Hooker. I didn't know Dariush and Fahea was booked. And you got Corey Sandhagen versus Frankie Edgar. That should be a banger of a fight. This will be a very fun super fight Saturday before the Super Bowl. So everybody enjoy your week. Have a good night. We'll be back tomorrow. See you